World-class salespeople are always quirky. The number ones are always quirky. In fact, the best of the best in the world are always quirky. What does quirky mean? It means the ability to disarm and build trust quickly, to be non-threatening, to be unique in some way, and to be distinct. The best of the best in all industries are always quirksters. Great salespeople are always very, very passionate about what they sell. They're easily aroused by the products, services, or solutions that they sell. And I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle for a lot of salespeople that are not successful. Are they selling something that they have a genuine, true belief in? And are they genuinely passionate about what they're selling day to day? Because that is literally half the battle. And of course, A-grade operators will only sell a product or service that they're deeply passionate about. Working with a quirky cat, he is an A-grade salesperson. His name's Dave. He's a business owner. And we call him the lion because he has lion tattoos all over him. He's a beast. He loves to work out. And he's Italiano. And he is full of passion. And we're helping him scale his business and empowering his sales team. So I was up there. In fact, I was up there delivering a free workshop to his current team because of boom, we talk about going the extra mile. So I actually paid my own way up there, flights, accommodation, and delivered a half-day training session around the relationship diamond as a little bit of a gift. And it's part of our rule of 3, which is coffee, sugar, biscuit, are going the extra mile. So that's a little bit of biscuit for Dave the Lion and his team. They're amazing, really quality people. So it was good fun. And we got some sun. His biggest challenge is being able to replicate himself. So he's an absolute A-grade, passionate salesperson with 20 years of experience, but he wants to scale his business. And that means that he needs to be able to replicate himself, which is very tricky to do. So how do you, as a business owner, replicate yourself? Okay, you've got to hire the right people, but you've got to also have a process, a consistent way of engaging customers that even C-grade people can follow and be relatively successful, or your A-grade salespeople can follow and absolutely smash it. So we're building the sales process at the moment and also giving him the tools so he can step away from sales and empower his team to sell more. And how do you do that? You've got to find people. That seems to be the biggest challenge for businesses, is finding great people. They don't know how to find them. In fact, they go through this process where they're so gun shy from making bad decisions, hiring, recruiting, investing in people that let them down, don't deliver. They start to get this sort of really negative mindset towards salespeople, which is then manifests in, well, we just can't find anyone. They don't exist. So we come in, shed some light on that, help them find great salespeople, and they're amazed. They're like, we didn't even know these people existed. They're out there. You just have to take your recruitment strategy seriously, which will mean never outsource something that's core to your success to a third party. Always insource it, which means list management, going after quality A-grade people, and really going after them. And every time I ask a owner that we have as a profile, the owner is often what we call the wounded warrior. And the warrior is wounded because they've made mistakes, they've paid a lot of money, they've invested in people, they've believed in people, trusted people, salespeople that is, and they've been let down, broken promises, ripped off, so they're wounded. They're also very frustrated because they've got a great business, fundamentally a really good business, but they don't know how to sell it, their products or solutions. So that wounded warrior will often say to me, we can't find great salespeople, they don't exist, we've tried. They're almost ready to throw the keys at me and give me the keys to the business. They're that wounded and frustrated. But my question's always, can you honestly, warrior, Mr. or Mrs. Warrior, can you honestly say, hand on heart, that you have gone 100% hard on finding, hunting, and identifying and seducing these great people? Can you honestly say you've actually gone really hard on your list management to find these people? And nearly always the question's no. Well, probably if you ask it like that, the answer's no, we haven't. So, but we've been using recruiters or we've been relying on other people. So that's the first mistake. You've got to take your recruitment and your list management seriously And in fact, even an elite sporting club, the best of the best will all say that if you think about a professional sporting organisation, the second most important person behind the coach is the list manager. Okay, is the person that builds your list, which builds your talent, which brings people in, identifies people, brings them in, because you cannot compete at a high level without great players. Equally so, as a business, you cannot be at your absolute best unless you've got A-grade salespeople in your organisation. So that takes work. And I think that actually is where the problem is. It takes a lot of work to find these people, and that is where the challenge is. They don't know where to look, and they rely on recruiters, first mistake, to find these great people. So really important. Agencies that sell salespeople sounds smelly to begin with, to be honest. But it's interesting because when I was recently in Sweden, we have a grader. Hello, Simon. You are important. And he's come into the business, had limited experience in that industry, and he is now their number one. And I asked Joran the Great how much he would pay, knowing what he knows now about this person's performance and his ability to shape culture. He's now been stepped up to, and we promoted him to the sales manager. So I said, how much could I have sold him to you for, knowing what you know now? And the number was 500,000. And I reckon that was low. I could have got Joran the Great up to $1 million. That's how valuable an A-grader is when you think about the amount of value they bring over there. It's much like a customer. Lifetime value of the customer, lifetime value of the salesperson. You know, so again, how do you find these people? Well, they don't come easy. You've got to put the work in. But coming back to recruiters and agencies that sell salespeople, I'm open to it, but I'm yet to find a good one. So hello, if you're out there and you can do it really well, call me, email me, social me. But I'm yet to find a really A-grade recruiter, and I'm yet to come across an A-grade agency that sells salespeople. If they're out there, I'd like to know about it, to be honest. I would really like to know who you are and know how you're doing it and why you're different. But I'm in the industry and I come across A-graders every day of the week. We work with them. In every business, there's always a number one. Typically, those number ones have come through the organisation. So they've started at a certain level and they've been able to learn their craft. But it's interesting because high-performing salespeople generally are surrounded by other high-performing salespeople, because an A-grader is not going to stay in bad culture. They will either change it, okay, or they leave. You know, and when we go into organisations at Boom, and I see these salespeople that I know have a lot more to give, but they're in the wrong culture. And I'll ask the owner or the fearless leader, you know, what's going on with the team? And the response will be, they're lacking real motivation at the moment. Our market's changed. You know, it's a little bit of a different. They've gone from order taking now. They've got to work, and some of them are really struggling. So there's all these sort of excuses. So my question's always, okay, well, that makes sense to me, but who's responsible for that? And again, the owner might say, or the fearless leader might say, we've had a couple of bad experiences with sales managers. The last two we've hired haven't quite worked out. So it's a big problem for us. So it's like, you know what? You don't have so who's responsible for that? Again, it's like, well, is it you, the owner? And the answer's always, to be honest with it probably is, but I don't understand sales. So, you're saying you don't have a sales problem, you have a leadership problem. Okay, and that's where it starts. And I think a great leader will know how to find great people. And in fact, a great leader, that's the number one job. Your job as a leader is to surround yourself with great people. That's it. And there's an art and there's a science to doing that. Equally so with salespeople, because good salespeople know good salespeople, and good salespeople will change culture or they will go. All right. So that's probably one of the things that makes a great salesperson is they're generally entrepreneurial. They have a level of innovation about how they operate. They see things a little bit differently. And I think that's a real interesting trait with a salesperson is they're most of the good ones are entrepreneurs. They see themselves as their own business. They take responsibility. They're accountable. Whereas the lower performing, hey, let's be honest, the average salespeople, okay, they are typically, they play the blame game a lot. They don't take accountability. There's a lot of reasons why a salesperson's not performing. One of the biggest reasons is typically they're not fit for role. So I'm like, Barry, why are you even in this role? You're an account manager, mate. Why are you selling? What the hell's going on? Oh, well, there might be a whole range of reasons. Well, they asked me to sell. No one else could sell. Bad decision. Again, you don't have a sales problem. You have a leadership problem. That's a leadership decision. Okay, putting people into the right roles. Finding great people and then putting them into the right role. We talk about the bus a lot at Boom. Getting the right people on the bus. The bus only goes in one way and it doesn't stop. It does stop, actually. It lets people off, puts the right people on. So the Boom bus is always rolling. But it keeps moving. Great people surround themselves with great people. When I go into a team and it's average, and that wounded warrior, the beautiful, beautiful creatures they are, wounded, just give them a cuddle. The wounded warrior says, my sales team are shit. I say, well, you're shit. You're the leader. They're ultimately your responsibility. Hey, and then they might say, I hate salespeople. Why? Because they rip me off, they lie to me, they're overpaid, they do nothing. Can you fix them? Whew, big question, Mr. Warrior or Mrs. Warrior. Can I fix them? If I'm really honest, no. Because it's not about fixing them, it's about fixing your culture. Okay, and this is a big question. What is culture? Okay, culture is people. Okay, so fixing the culture means changing people, or fixing the culture means improving people. So there's two things you have to get really good as a sales leader. Talent and list management. Talent identification is at the core of every elite team. You cannot win without a great team. You can't win a premiership or a championship without an amazing team. That has to be built. Okay, so this is interesting. So that needs to be taken someone needs to take responsibility for your list management in your organization. Do not outsource it to a recruiter. And the great leaders, the great sales leaders that we work with, they are always looking for talent. I had an experience just this week on the Sunshine Coast, talking to Rod. Hello, Rod from Trinity Advisors. He's an absolute A-grader. He found one of his accountants working for Amart, right? So he engaged with this guy working at Amart, and Rod said to him, because he's the owner, hey, you're too good to be doing this. And he said, yeah, I know, I'm studying commerce and accounting. And Rod said, do you want a job? And he said, really? Bang, he's in there now, and he's an A-grader. That's list management. No recruiter found that guy. Okay, that's the hunger. That's the difference between, having a entrepreneurial lens across being so passionate about building a business, which often a great owner or business leader will do. They're always looking for great people. They could be in a cafe. They could be talking to someone on a plane. I was talking to an A-grade sales leader recently, and he said this is a very manly, masculine man. And he was saying he looks for the aura. Okay, great salespeople have an aura. And I was like, wow, that's a bit fluffy. He goes, no. It's a passion. It's something about you that resonates, and something about the way you are operating in the world, how you treat people, how you see things, how you do things, that gives you that glow. And he was really big on this. As we're talking about passion, how important passion is, and he was saying the passion's like a glow. It's like an aura, and I think that's really, really cool. So you can relate to this. Sometimes when you walk along the street, people start smiling at you. As I was walking yesterday, Sunshine Coast, walking towards the beach, and I had three couples walk past me, both smiled at me and said hello. And I was like, how cool is this? What's going on? It's because I was happy, I was in a good place, my eyes were up, I was smiling, and that attracts people. So this is really interesting. When you know when you're on point, when you're attracting good people into your life. And you know when you're on point when strangers are smiling at you and talking to. It was really interesting. I'm one of those people also. If I'm walking on the street and I see someone lost, right? Someone's looking a little bit like they're looking for directions. They will always find me for some reason. I don't know how many times over the years I've been asked for directions. And sometimes I'm in a strange city, I have no idea where I'm going. So I can't give clear directions. But that's interesting. What does that mean? Well, it probably means I've got a friendly face. It probably means I look trustworthy. Okay. It probably means that I know or I have the information they need. So it's really interesting. But I get coming back to that point around when you are vibrating on a certain frequency, you attract people. And again, talking to another client recently, I won't say who on this instance, they said to me, the owner said to me, I don't trust him. There's something about this salesperson in our team that's not quite right. There's something about this person where I just don't know if I believe him or not. I don't know if I can trust this person. And I said, right, can I ask you a question? If you're feeling that energy, what do you think your customers are feeling? It's the same energy. And they were like, so what should we do? And I said, well, do you want me to eyeball this person? Let me sit down and do a body scan and have a chat to them. And I'll give you some objective feedback, some objective set of eyes across this person. But I said, your instincts are probably right. But if you're feeling that, your customers are feeling that. And again, you don't have a sales problem. You have a leadership problem. Okay, so your question would be, are you okay with letting a questionable salesperson engage your customers? Okay, because what you're really missing, if you're saying, well, is this person good enough? Does this person have the qualities that we absolutely demand to represent our brand? And does this person have the character traits and the capabilities to be able to succeed in their role and represent the brand? And of course, why do we hire salespeople? So they can sell stuff, but obviously to help us grow so we can grow customers. In today's current climate, what I'm getting asked a lot about now is how to find great people. And I'm getting this is a really consistent bit of feedback from business owners, is that there's a talent war, but since COVID, since the pandemic, people are lazier and more entitled and don't want to work. I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's just because they're the people that your recruiter's sending you. Okay, there's some quality people out there, but you have to hunt them. You've got to go after them. And this sort of entitlement mindset breeds complacency in a culture. And that complacency just is a real symptom of again, having the wrong people in your organization. Again, so you don't have a sales problem, you have a leadership problem. The leader has to bring those people in. But this sort of, how do you motivate people is the question. How do you motivate people and keep them motivated? That's not easy. Okay. Multi-million-dollar question. How do you motivate people? Well, the high performers will generally have a way of self-motivating. But they typically, A-grade salesperson will want to be challenged. Okay. And you have to create that competitive environment in your own team, as well as, focusing on your external competitors. But your A-grade operator is very competitive. They are passionate about what they do. They absolutely stink of passion. We call it activity and boom, where we do the sniff test. Got to smell, stink of passion. They're resilient. They don't necessarily, they have a thick skin, yeah, but they also don't see no as poison. They don't see no as a negative thing. It's part of the process. What's interesting though, if you've set up your sales process the right way, okay, that's what we do. The core of what we do at Boom is process, sales process. Is if you set up your sales process in the right way, okay, and have the right tools and have the right levers to pull at the right time, you'll probably never, ever hear no, or you'll never hear an objection. That's the harsh reality. So that's the power of process, getting the right people to operate by the same consistent process is one of the things that we work really closely with our clients on. Building that process and then obviously making sure that we're building culture, bringing in great people to be able to communicate the process and bring that process to life. But I want to come back a little bit to what makes a great salesperson. They generally have worked out a process or a way of doing things that works. they have to have a bit of time under the in the role, so to speak. Have to have a bit of time in the role, so to speak, to find their feet, because that knowledge base and the product knowledge that's really required to communicate from a place of confidence and clarity, and do it in a way that has that 100% belief, that can take time. A lot of people are chasing success and they want to replicate success. So they're wanting the silver bullet, or they're wanting the blueprint to be successful. And I think there's probably an opportunity to actually flip that, because I think the most effective way to chase success is to do the opposite of what unsuccessful people do. And this is interesting, because if you look at a team, like a sales team per se, and you want to be unsuccessful, here's some bulletproof things that you absolutely must commit to. Okay, the first is never celebrate. Okay, never celebrate. Because you know what? Losers never celebrate. Winners celebrate a lot. Okay, so yeah, if you want to be really unsuccessful, don't celebrate. And this is often, you see this with salespeople and sales teams, they just go month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year with no celebration. It's like the clock goes back to zero every month, and they've had a record month. Like, where's the celebration? So that's one thing to do if you want to be unsuccessful. Don't celebrate. The other thing is, don't have a process. Okay, that's make up things on the fly. That's sell the products at different price points. Say things that aren't true. Make sure they're really uneducated. Okay, so don't give your salespeople product knowledge. This is fascinating to me, because when every session we do, and I ask the groups, the salespeople, show of hands, who could improve their product knowledge? Guess what happens? Every hand goes up. How does that happen? Okay, you may not have the charismatic qualities of a Hollywood actor and be super engaging and be able to be an extrovert and be able to light up a room when you walk in. But you can be unbelievably well prepared, and that means knowing your product, knowing your stuff. And it seems to be, again, you don't have a sales problem, you have a leadership problem. That comes back to the leader. Why don't the sales people know their stuff? Okay, but again, the A-grade salesperson, despite that, is easily aroused. They fantasize about their product, their service, or whatever solution they're selling. So they're generally investing their own time and energy into learning their product deeply. And you know why? Because they're very competitive, and they hate it when a client knows more about what they sell than they do. Okay, and that's a really interesting one. And I know you salespeople out there know this. You can sometimes get eaten alive by a customer because you don't have your product knowledge at their level. That's a real danger. And the competitive, that's another trait of a high-performing salespeople. They hate losing. And that is, they're a competitor. Think about it. If you want to be successful, you have to be a competitor in any field. Sales is exactly the same. And I do use a lot of sporting analogies, I'm sorry, but I love my sport. That there's a real crossover between high-performance sports and high-performance salespeople. You're talking about leadership, mindset, process, feedback, training, coaching, mentoring, resilience, recovery. It is exactly the same thing. And this is what I see with salespeople, is they're often burnt out because they're not doing the right things off the pitch. They're going year in, year out without a break. And I think that's a real trap. So as salespeople, we have to really look after ourselves, because you cannot be in a peak state if you're tired and burnt out. So again, that's a really important aspect of any high-performance activity. In fact, there are some things that we work on with teams to make sure that they are in their peak state. And I am big on the passion. Okay, the passion. So I'll be lighting up teams with passion. Not uncommon for us to sometimes go into a team and measure them on the passion meter. And a passion meter is a tool that we have at Boom. And to find salespeople at 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. So can you imagine a salesperson operating at 3 out of 10? How are they performing? And what sort of energy levels are they giving to your customers? And this is a really big lament here in Australia. I was meeting with Angelo, my accountant, and he just came back from Greece, and he shared with me, he'd only been back a week, and he'd shared with me 3 stories already of service here in Australia. And coming back from Greece and going overseas, when you come back, it's often quite glaring that you're dealing with people that don't care. I say, I would rather deal with a robot that was trying to trying to show that they cared through their programming than a human who does not care. Seriously, give me the robot every day of the week. The robot has an unbelievable work ethic. The robot works 24/7, right? The robot doesn't make mistakes. The robot has a process. What the robot lacks, though, is heart and passion. So as soon as we can work out a way to give these bloody robots the passion and the heart, look out. Humans are going to be redundant. And we all know that's coming with AI. But again, it's like, to be fair, sometimes when I go into a business and I'm selling a lot and I'm working with different organizations all over the world to help them sell more stuff, but I'm also a consumer and I love to buy stuff. And so many times I'm disappointed. Where's the love? Where's the passion? And I'm looking at this person thinking, you're at a 2 out of 10, Buster. You poor little darling. Come here and let me give you a little cuddle is my first instinct. Then I'm like, you know what? This is really bad. What's going on here? You know, where's the manager? And then you talk to the manager. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, we just can't find good people. You know, no one wants to work. The last 3 people we hired left. In fact, we had a guy, he said on Sunday night, every night he would physically be ill. You know, he would be dry reaching on a Sunday evening at the thought of coming in on a Monday. You don't have a sales problem, you have a leadership problem. But it's interesting. I think that's probably fair. It is hard to find good people, but success is not for everybody. Okay, so that's where you got to work. You got to do the work with finding great people. And the leader has to do the work in building the culture, which is constantly looking to bringing better people, not putting up with complacency. That's a really big part of what we're doing when we get asked to come in and work for companies, is the thing that I will always say, and we're talking about projects that are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, before the client signs with us, I will always ask them one question. This is a masterful question. And that is, before you sign, do you really want to do this? And I often get a baffled response from that. But what it does is it crystallizes their need to do it. But what my point of that question is, there's a load of work you need to do. There's a lot of pain that you're going to need to do to change your culture, because a lot of these people are going to have to go because they shouldn't be here in the first place. And it's very hard to fire people and transition them out, and very expensive. In fact, I won't say who because it's a little bit glaring. In a recent project, I said to the owner, it's cheaper to pay this person to stay at home and not come in and not do any work at all. This person's hemorrhaging clients, and he's been in the business 15 years. And it's going to take 6 months. Pay him not to come in. You know, and it was like, let's do the numbers. So we got the CFO in. She goes, yeah, he's right. Yeah, it's cheaper for him not to come in and still pay him. I was like, there you go. Classic example of that complacent culture. You don't have a sales problem, you have a leadership problem. How do you let people stay in an organization in a dysfunctional state for years on year, year out, in a complacent state, underperforming? That sort of comes back on the leader. And then we go, this guy's hopeless. He's not working. He does nothing. He's hopeless. He's always late. Or they're unreliable. Well, that's on you, Buster. How do you let that happen? That's who's driving the standards here. So that's one thing. It's always, you look at these underperforming salespeople sometimes. It's not necessarily their fault. What you're seeing is them in an uninspired, passionless state. But on the flip side of that, they're getting no support. They're getting no love. They're not celebrating wins. Maybe they're not getting paid very well. The old saying is, we don't leave a company, we leave a manager first. So they're not getting the right leadership. So it's always a two-sided coin, underperformance. Again, it comes back to leadership, culture, standards, who's driving that. The most dysfunctional organizations that we work with, dysfunctional clients, we are often completely transforming the whole business, because the sales culture is an extension of the organization's culture normally. They're very rarely separate, where you've got an amazing culture over here and you've got this really ordinary average culture in the sales function. It's generally across the board. So typically the projects that we're working with become more about business transformation, because once the others see what's happening with the sales team, they go, wow, we should be doing this, or does this relate to us? Of course it does, because it's people skills and communication. The core of everything that we do at Boom Sales is about people. So that usually flexes across the entire organization. And the most magical transformations we've had with clients is when the core leader, that wounded warrior, is on board completely. And they speak the Boom language. They sit in on every training session. They want to know more. They want to learn and grow as well, because often that leader is the ceiling. That leader is limiting the growth of the business based on their skills, knowledge, capabilities, passion levels. And look, and sometimes for very good reasons, they are tired. They're 7 years into the business. They've double mortgaged the house. The wife's saying, go and get a paid job. So some of these leaders that we work with are all in, right? And they're stressed and they're tired. Those organizations we love helping. We took a business that was in that state that had been operating for 7 years at 1.8 million revenue, barely profitable, in fact, not profitable, to 20 million in 2 years, 24 months. Okay, so they had 5 salespeople. We sacked 3, and we helped them build their process, transform their culture. Okay, and we built everything around the process, and then we helped them hire, no recruiters. We helped them hire 12 BDM salespeople, and they went kaboom. And I had people that weren't even in the sales function. We were celebrating monthly. At one of the parties drunk, my God, thank you. I've never seen this place. This is like a different business. Why? Because we brought in great people. We brought them in from overseas. We actually went out and hunted for really amazing salespeople. Prior to that point, the wounded warrior didn't even think they existed. In fact, he hated salespeople. I think if you have to pick one thing, one specific thing above all that makes salespeople, we talk about the quirkiness and the stinking of passion, deep product knowledge, deep arousal for what you sell, the ability to engage with different types of people at different levels. Again, that's people skills, so great people skills. Being an exceptional listener, that's often underestimated, the power of listening. But I generally think that the best salespeople, they have a way of connecting with people that is extremely likable and trustworthy. And I think it's really, really interesting. But I think there's that magnetic energy that some people have where when you meet them, you feel like you know them. Or they have this energy about them that is very, very attractive or intriguing. Now, this could sound a bit mystical, but it's a lot of people looking for the X factor. And, we have referenced the aura, having a certain aura about you. But I think if you're a genuinely good person and you genuinely 100% believe in what you sell and you're there for the right reasons, which is ultimately value exchange, and the customer is getting value, you're getting value, and you're motivated, then, the selling part is really, really easy. And I think that's, again, everyone can sell, but if they believe in what they're selling and they're coming from the right place, I think it gets much, much easier. But selling becomes hard when you're focusing on the wrong things, when you're coming from the wrong place, when you're working for the wrong company, or when you're in the wrong role in the first place. That's half the battle as well. Like, why have you got the bloody goalkeeper at striker? They're a goalkeeper. Why that striker? Don't know. Okay, so why is that account manager being asked to proactively outbound lead generate? And you're saying they don't enjoy it and they're not performing. well, typically they're in the wrong role. So there's a whole range of things that we would look at in an organization. Moving the chess pieces around a little bit is a really big part of that. But again, being a genuinely good person, being a genuinely good human who cares will absolutely eat any robot alive. 100% guaranteed.